you have a local authority declare a climate emergency, and then it's just like, well, so where's the urgency then?
Yeah.
Because you're not doing anything. You're creating plans that are going to take place in like 10 years or 2 years. We need action to start taking place now. And I think that's the main motivation for generations to come. It's like, what type of planet are we going to leave for them? Are we going to leave them a green oasis or a desert?
Welcome to The Green Urbanist, a podcast for urbanists fighting climate change. I'm Ross. What if I told you that London is a national park? Actually, it's a national park city, where birdsong mixes with the sound of traffic and humans share the ecosystem with foxes and frogs. London is actually the first city in the world to be granted the title of a national park city. This didn't come out of nowhere, and it certainly didn't come down from above. This is a grassroots movement that began with asking a simple question. What if we treated London as if it was a national park? Would we do more to protect its trees and green spaces? Would we embrace and nurture the wildlife that's here, and would we feel more connected to nature? After all, 48% of London is covered in vegetation and water, and the city is home to over 14,000 species of plants, animal and fungi, from tiny insects to towering trees and mammals like foxes and badgers. The notion of a national park city grew over years of campaigning and received huge support from Londoners until eventually the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, granted the city the status of a national park city back in July of 2019. But that's really only the beginning. The London National Park City Organisation, or LNPC for short, is a growing community of volunteers and partners who are committed to making London greener, healthier and wilder, to help residents enjoy the great outdoors more, and to promote London's identity as a national park city. Back in April, I took up a role as a National Park City Ranger, one of 110 volunteers across London. The Ranger cohort includes ecologists, teachers, artists, students, architects, gardeners, doctors and many others with diverse backgrounds and skill sets. We're each contributing to the LNPC mission in our own way. As part of my role, I'll be documenting some of the amazing urban greening initiatives happening across London here on the podcast, and in the coming months I'll also get my hands dirty with some physical interventions to make London greener. This episode is the first in an ongoing series with Rangers exploring projects in the city. I hope it's inspiring and informative for all of you listening, especially if you're not based in London. We want the National Park City idea to spread around the world, so keep listening to learn more about how you can get started greening your own city. Today I'm on my way to North London to meet two rangers, Luke Newcombe and Charles Linton, and they're going to give me a tour of their local area, Wood Green, so I can see some urban greening interventions firsthand. Wood Green is a suburban area about 10 kilometres north of central London, and despite the name, I don't see much green space as I meet Luke and Charles at the underground station. In fact, it feels pretty grey and urban with heavy traffic along the high street. For the past 5 years, Luke has been leading the charge to put the green back into Wood Green.
My name's Luke Newcombe. I'm the founder of GrowN22, also go by the nickname of Duke. It just so happens I used to work in the video game industry and had the nickname of Duke Newcombe. So, but the general reason why I'm doing all of this is because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a gardener by trade, and I found this niche in the market that, you know, you could do some good while earning a living at the same time. And, you know, this area needs that type of intervention to take place, because if you wait for the council or the government to do something, you'll be waiting forever. Yeah. So it's just like, okay, get the written permission, go off and do it, try and secure the funding, and voila. Yeah. You know, you've got a community project, or moving forward a few years, a good 10 different projects on the go. Yeah. You know, you've got these community gardens and friends groups all under constitutions and things, and sure, that little niche in between. And it's like offer expert advice on how to plant or how to create a garden, but on the flip side of working with the community as well. So therefore you have you create a legacy effect with the local community, because then you'll get people coming over to water, to tend to the plants, and it gets everyone in a good mood.
Luke has identified 50 potential sites for greening in his local area. As we walk down the high street, he points to a flat roof on a building and says that would be a great place for a green roof. And further on, he remarks that the footpath is wide enough to fit in a few planters. He's obviously developed a vision for finding underused sites and reimagining them as pocket parks and community gardens. The first site they bring me to is Wood Green Library. Now, the library is a mid-century concrete building set back from the high street behind a little public square. Luke tells me that in the past it was a hotspot for antisocial behaviour.
Wood Green Library for many years was a place where drunks would hang out, homeless people would sleep rough underneath the canopy over there. And the bid applied for funding with the Mayor of London's, I think it was Grow Back Greener Fund.
Okay.
And they secured the funds and commissioned us to come in and do the gardens. So we started a week prior to lockdown, the first lockdown. And as you can imagine, it became very difficult to source plants because everything had closed down.
Oh, yeah.
Lucky enough, I was able to get special permission to come out and work and put together a small team of volunteers, including Charles, to come out and help plant. And a year later, this is what we've got.
Prior to summer of 2020, the public space was a bit bare and unwelcoming. It had a nice mature tree sitting in a large tree pit, but other than that, the space was dominated by drab paving, a few weeds, and a single solitary bench. No wonder it didn't attract much community life. Now the space feels really vibrant, with tall grasses sprouting out of a rocky arrangement on one side and a colourful wildflower meadow surrounding the mature tree. It's a Sunday afternoon when we visit, and it's packed full of people hanging out and enjoying the refuge on a busy shopping street. We can't even find a free bench to sit on, so we stand at the edge and I ask Luke how all this happened.
It took a while for the gardens to develop. We had to contend with a few things I didn't really think of. People walking on over the gardens, driving motorbikes over them. But the nice thing is the drunks have kind of filtered out from here and they've gone elsewhere. The nice thing here was that we were able to create gardens based on resident and community-based feedback, which is not really done when it comes down to an urban project. So, getting people to select what types of grasses, there's like say 40 different species of it, so narrowing down what type of species of grass to go, what type of wildflowers to go in there. It's just doing all that type of thing and keep people engaged and involved with the project, so you create that sense of ownership. And then we've got a team of just under 20 people that come over and do watering, maintenance, that type of stuff.
Is that those volunteers?
So, all volunteers, yeah.
Local people?
Yeah, local residents. And it's really worked out. You've got a unique ecosystem over there, creating a vibrant, biodiverse area for wildlife, insects, birds, and people to use it as a social hub. It's like, you come over here, you're in a happy mood, just chilling out, sitting on one of the benches and just relaxing.
This project really drives home for me the fact that to create a really good public space, you only need a few elements. Sometimes some attractive landscaping, some colour, and a few benches are enough to activate a space and provide an asset for the community. And you can hear on the recording how noisy it is here. There's a lot of traffic, scooters passing, people talking, but somehow it still feels like a relaxing place to be, and it's somewhere people clearly choose to come to. I asked Charles, who lives locally, what it was like volunteering on the project.
Yeah, so I was involved with some of the initial planting, planting in the gardens, and I've been down on some weekends and done some reading and watering of the plants. And in the first lockdown, to celebrate the opening of the garden, we set up a library garden short story competition for local children to take part in, sort of combining the garden and the library, so all the stories were sort of nature-based.
Yeah.
Excellent. Is there a lot of maintenance that has to go into this, like ongoing?
Yeah, I think sort of initially there was just to sort of like maintain the plants and get rid of some of the weeds that were coming up and growing a bit quickly, and sort of shading out the other plants that are growing.
Next, the two rangers bring me into a shopping centre, which seems like a strange choice. We go up the escalator, and Luke points out the window to two flat roofs below, which have just recently been planted with ferns, geraniums, and vinca flowers. He explains they'll soon grow high enough for passers on the street to see them, and he hopes that they will help to clean the air from the busy road and become haven for insects. There are also a couple of bee hotels bolted to the outside wall next to the green roofs. Best of all, the larger of these green roofs is above a wig shop. Luke has designed the planting so eventually some colourful flowers will hang over the edge like a fringe above the shop. After this, we head down a quiet residential street just behind the high street to a new site that is really just in its early stages. For this one, Luke is working with the local community, schools and the council to transform a forgotten piece of street at the end of a no-through road into a pocket park, also called a parklet. It will be a mini multifunctional green space for the locals. Alright, here we are. Tell us what we're looking at here.
So we've just arrived at the intersection of Vincent Road and Gladstone Avenue. This is the site of Haringey's first official parklet. And we recently held held two workshop sessions. One was with Knoll Park Primary School, where the children came up with ideas to write onto a board, and the architects used those designs that the kids came up with to create a spec for what the parklet should be.
Okay.
Then we hosted a design exhibition. We had a couple of boards here and a table with some design ideas and just ideas from the school, and just to engage with local residents and just see what their thoughts were. And generally everything was very, very positive. And yeah, this will be coming in late 2021.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fun site, because looking at it as an educational space, and plus to rewild it as well. Yeah. Because we're looking at it, it's a really pretty big space when you look at it. So as long as the walkway's clear for people to walk down, and then this space is used as like maybe a workshop area. So maybe take out some chairs and tables and sit people down, and maybe have a bike repair just over there. It'd be great to turn this section here with the bollards, like take the bollards out, maybe paint the bollards and stick them in different places so cars can't come in here.
Yeah.
And then rewild this whole area with a suds-based system. And then you create a nice little habitat for wildlife again.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Why was this site in particular chosen?
Well, I just happen to live 10 seconds that way. I've been living here for 12 years, and I've been walking past this space forever. And it's looked at it as this huge amount of potential rather than cars being parked here.
So it could be a way of, I guess, bringing people together a bit more.
Yeah, another like the library, like another kind of social hub.
Yeah.
But more of the focus on education.
Okay.
So if you imagine, like, say on a Saturday or Sunday, maybe 10 to 11 o'clock, there's a workshop to build bird boxes.
Yeah.
And then you take those bird boxes home, install them in your tree or your fence or whatever, and bingo, you've got something that's created working with local community, and it's a kind of legacy gift in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like, how did you get that bird box? I went down to the Gladstone Park. Yeah.
The final stop on our tour is Westbury Banks Nature Reserve, a funny little site sandwiched between a busy road and some suburban back gardens. So this is like a long strip of a site down a little embankment from a busy road just above us.
Yeah.
And was it just leftover space that people were dumping in?
Back in up until the 60s, this used to be the embankment for the Knoll Park Railway. So just further down, you've got the old track that leads into the Sadlings estate. All of that infrastructure's all gone now, but this is what was left over, and it's been abandoned for, I think, probably from the 60s up until I got involved, 4 years ago.
Wow.
So, and we found like crisp packets from 1989, like the old McCoys and stuff. And we've been wanting to keep these to show off like a plastic board. So look, this stuff does not decompose.
But now the nature reserve is a flourishing, wild, messy green space, which, despite the traffic nearby, feels pretty detached from the busy high street we were on just moments before. Luke tells me how it happened and how people use the space.
Yeah, so welcome to the Westbury Banks Nature Reserve. This is an initiative by the Knoll Park Big Local, an organisation that's based in Knoll Park with resident-led partners. And they've got £1 million to spend on the neighbourhood, but not to replace council-based services. So one of the first things that we set up was this nature reserve. It was a fly tipping hotspot for over 10 years or so, and where we're sitting right now, we've got a pond directly opposite. When we dug this out, we found the remains of a vehicle, took the suspension of a vehicle out, and all of these debris here were from like a kitchen and bathroom, so we smashed them up and turned it into a rockery to go around the pond. So like a big focus of this site is to reuse and upcycle as much as possible.
Okay.
So we get quite a few donations from local residents. Get quite a few. It's odd because we get quite a few plant donations as well, and it's like, well, we're in a nature reserve. We can't really grow food in here because of the contamination with microplastics in the soil. So the site is contaminated with microplastics, and it's a massive job to try and remove it. Over the last year or so, we haven't been able to come in as much as what we'd normally do because we normally have 2 workshops every month. 3 if you include the Good Gym workshops. They come on Wednesday, we come in on a Sunday, 10 till 2. And it's really nice. I met Charles by coming down here. I've met quite a few people, and they're all quite happy to give up their time to volunteer and learn new skills. So, from a gardening point of view, that you can just leave a lot of this to grow naturally.
Right.
So you can see like a weed, for example, to see how it develops. And it's like, is that a nice looking weed? Should I keep that in the garden, or shall I get rid of it? So at least you got an option there. Like the bench that you're sitting on right now is a memorial bench to a local resident. Her sister, Ali. So Ali, she's the lady that passed away, and then her sister, I can't remember her name offhand, purchased this bench, and the horse chestnut tree that you see right next to Charles.
Oh yeah.
And that's doing really, really well there. Just to have another tree in here. So we've got quite a few memorial trees. We get McDonald's down here every so often, so they do their team bonding sessions.
Okay.
So McDonald's would just nip over, send about 20 people, and really helpful because they bring used coffee. Used coffee can be used as fertilizer for the grounds. They'll bring water or harvested rainwater from their roof, top up the pond or top up the water butt. So you've got a really nice community vibe going on down here, and it's providing people with something to do on a Sunday. And you can learn the basics of gardening. To give you a bit of background, been in this site for 4 or 5 years? 4 years now. When we first came in, it was completely overgrown with brambles and that type of stuff. So first thing we did was just clear this whole area just so we had a pathway. We secured some money from Groundwork London to do the pond and the signage that you see up there, and then the water butt as well. We've got an extensive program. So you may have heard of Kabir, Ranger Kabir.
Oh yeah.
That's his bird hide up there.
Bird hide.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's in camouflage right now.
Yeah.
That you can vaguely see.
I'm not sure I do, but I do. Yeah, I do see that. I would have totally missed that.
So that's good. At least the camouflage is working.
If I was a bird, I would be startled.
The cool thing with that is that we're going to expand on it this year, make it a lot bigger. So that's maybe a project you come down for and give us a hand with. So expand the bird hide, so then you can sit in there and just watch out for birds. We've got bird feeders dotted around all over the place. We've got camera traps as well, so that haven't been reviewed at the moment, but generally capture what type of wildlife who are using the pond as a water source. So you've got pigeons, regular birds, foxes, cats, domestic cats. We did have badgers in here 4 years ago, but I think they've moved on to the allotments across the way there.
Ah, really?
But we get a lot of foxes in here. There's quite a few fox dens. And the neighbours are pretty good. There's only a couple of people that are just little bit resistant to it. But the thing is, I purposely did this, I kept track of property prices when we first came in and measured it over the years. So whenever somebody says, "Oh, I don't like you guys being in the nature reserve," I was like, "Well, you know what? There's 20 grand been added onto the value of your house because there's a nature reserve at the back of it.
Really? So,
do you want us to go? We can put all the rubbish back. It's no problem." I think it might be a bit difficult getting the rubbish back, but don't really want to deal with that again. But yeah, literally 4 tons worth of rubbish has been taken out of here.
incredible. I asked Charles what other kind of wildlife they find in the nature reserve.
When we're working, we see a lot of robins. So often, like when we're digging and planting things, we like bring up loads of worms. So that robins always come and follow us around. We've seen great tits around by our bird feeder and bird hide. I'm quite interested in the invertebrates. Yeah. So we get lots of bees. So there's like lots of bumblebees that feed on the dead nettles and the buttercups. Around by the pond, we get lots of hoverflies, such as a tiger hoverfly, which has like a sort of stripy yellow and black patterns on its back, and something called a Batman hoverfly.
Really?
With it has like a thorax with a sort of almost Batman symbol on it, and they lay their eggs sort of in watery habitats. Okay. So we get lots of them sort of around the pond, and we've got some like, other little habitats for them.
Yeah. So you're kind of purposely trying to create habitats here for particular species?
Yeah. So we've got our pond. We've got some little rockery areas. We are going to be building a bug hotel with some students that are coming down shortly. We were that got a bit delayed with COVID, but yeah.
Excellent. And what I mean, are you purposely targeting, like you'd like to get certain species in here, give them a home, or is it all a bit more like, let's see what happens?
I think just having a variety of different habitats, so that there's sort of something for it, like lots of different types of animals. We also started work on a bog.
Oh, really?
Next to our pond as well, so a bit sort of like sludgier and thicker.
Finally, I sat down with Luke in the nature reserve to ask him about the London National Park City and how people can get started greening their own cities. But the first question I had was how becoming an LNPC ranger has changed his work.
I suppose the ranger thing is more of a status symbol in a way, but it also puts that approval stamp on what you're doing. So it's like, okay, fine, I am on the right path, as it were, with what GrowN22 is doing and what the NPC is doing. Again, those two are kind of entwined with each other, because if it wasn't for the NPC, GrowN22 wouldn't exist. So, and I've been involved with the NPC for 4 years now as well. So it's literally as soon as I started working on Nature Reserve, I got involved with the NPC, and the rest is history. I just love it. It's just great, you know. It's like having a network of 110 people. It's a great resource to tap into, because you look at everyone's careers in that 110 rangers, and then the skill sets as well. Wow. And you imagine like bringing everyone together to that wildflower meadow. It's a great bonding session. I loved the way that Burrs just tweeted there.
Really hope I caught that.
Yeah.
That was great. It's interesting that your company is called GrowN22, which is obviously the postcode.
Yep.
It seems like you're keeping it very local. Is there enough going on here that like keeps you going?
Super busy. So we've been operating. GrowN22's been operating as a CIC, a community interest company, for 3 years now. When we first started it was just purely to access funding, grants, and that type of stuff. But business has jumped to in terms of the amount of work that's coming in, it's jumped up 400%.
Wow!
In this year alone, it's like I generally cannot remember the last time I actually had a day off, apart from the day after I had the vaccine done, because I was in cuckoo land. Seriously, I was like walking around like, what the hell? So it's like, yeah, the switch off for that day. But I generally worked 7 days a week, and I like keeping busy. It's just like sitting at home is just boring. Sitting in front of a screen.
Not for you.
But it's all good.
I'm sure people are listening, they're feeling inspired about, I know loads of sites in my local area, I could be doing something. Do you have any advice for them on how to get started?
First thing, identify who the landowner is. If it's the local authority, write to them, email, give them a call. Find out who the relevant person is to deal with on that land. So you make a contact, you make that personal connection, and then try and seek permission to put a community garden on that plot of land. The second thing to do would be to get a group of people together, create a group with a constitution. Okay. There's lots of resources available online on how to create a constitution, on setting up a friends group. And then the third thing would be to identify funding options.
Okay.
Have a look for different grants where you can find funding that's going to buy your materials, cost your labour, pay for your plants, that type of stuff. So then you have a structured remit of how you're going to go about constructing and building that community garden.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, excellent. And then you just take it from there, identifying funding.
Yeah, in time, the funding applications themselves become a bit of a tricky thing, because you need to know what you're doing when it comes down to it, and you can't say, I just want money for this. It's like, you've got to give a reason as to why, and as long as you've got that written permission, you can't go wrong.
Okay.
You could go off the other way of doing guerrilla gardening, but then you run the risk of it being removed because it's not authorised to be there, and it could be a site for something else that's going to go in, like a tree, for example. But on the other side, you've got a lot of places in London have trees planted on the street. You've got like a border around the base of that tree, so you've got a tree pit right there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing stopping anyone from planting wildflowers in the base of those trees. So therefore, you create an ecosystem outside your house.
Yeah.
Linked by the other street trees that are on the road. So one thing that we've been thinking about doing is creating a street tree map of Haringey.
Oh, excellent.
And then cataloguing which ones are taken care of by local residents or community groups. And then that way it provides, and maybe using a bit of cob, I'll show you a cob structure down here in a second, putting a bit of cob around the trunk of the tree, putting berries in it, so it adds an ID to that tree. So the council officers come around, okay, we won't spray that tree because it's clearly marked as a community tree. You can put berries into that cob, so then you provide nesting or feeding facilities for the birds that live in the tree. Wildflowers down below, you create a pollination zone for bees and insects. So therefore you've got an own little ecosystem just in that tree pit area.
Yeah.
So, in terms of possibilities, it's kind of endless in that respect. But it just goes to show what you could do with a street tree, let alone a strip of land. So possibilities are endless when it comes down to it. But yeah, I'd say the other thing as well, maybe to be the fourth thing, is do a lot of research on the types of plants that you want to put in. Make sure you're not putting anything, especially on a public space, is not putting anything poisonous.
Okay.
So a lot of people like foxgloves as an example, but they're poisonous plants.
Right. Okay.
So the last thing you want to do is have a kid touching one of those, sticking it in their mouth, and then off to hospital they go. So research is another key thing. Just knowing your local area, knowing the type of plants to put in, and identifying what type of materials can you get away with raiding a skip, for example, and reclaiming materials. Or would it be a case of buying those materials and doing it all fresh? So there's multiple options there when it comes down to it.
Do you focus mostly on native planting?
It depends on the type of site. So like, for example, in the nature reserve, you don't really have to go off and buy plants. unless you wanted to introduce something, so like ferns. So we've put ferns in here. We've put bulbs in like daffodils and that type of stuff, but we've only put them in dead areas, and just to see if they would grow. And it's not interfering with any of the other plants. We've put crocuses in before as well, just to add that little splash of colour, just for the pathways and stuff.
Yeah. I've got two more questions for you.
Sure.
Which are a bit more general. One of them is, what do you love about London? And then the other one is, what we'll say in 10 years' time, what would you like to be different about London? What would you like to change?
What do I like about London, I suppose all of the green spaces and blue spaces. When I say blue, all of the rivers and little lakes and things that you've got dotted around. Like, I suppose one of my favourite places in London is Ali Pali Park, or Alexandra Palace Park. It's just a nice place to go to. Been going to it from when I was a child, so I guess that's probably one of my favourite spots. But in saying that, starting to discover these rooftop gardens in central London, and these are pretty cool places to go hang out. You've got ferneries dotted around with palms and stuff, and it's like, these are really cool, and in 10 years' time, ideally local authorities enabling residents and community groups to be able to take ownership of the outside of their homes, so like the pavement area, maybe putting planters or creating tree pits, or even putting parklets in front of their homes. So therefore you're creating more greenery, removing parking spaces, especially if people don't own a car. It's just like, what's the point of having a parking space if you don't have a car? You might as well turn it into a little pocket park, or a parklet, or just use it as a hub for meeting your neighbours. Because back before there were cars, there used to be street parties. And street parties used to be quite popular. You'd close off the whole road, you'd have everyone out eating, sharing, and nice atmosphere. Not that I'm that old though. So yeah, I'd say a more, it's going to hit into the NPC byline, but a more greener, healthier and cleaner London.
And a way of doing that is more easier and collaborative.
Yeah, I suppose it's possibly City Hall or the GLA creating a policy that then filters down to all London councils, which then enables community and resident groups to be able to go off and do what they need to do. And I think that will make a lot of the bureaucracy, a lot of the BS, a lot easier to manage. Because it's not an easy journey unless you're persistent like the AAA bunny. You may not get anywhere. It's a good thing I don't understand the word no, otherwise I wouldn't be getting anywhere.
That's it for today's episode. I hope that was inspiring and informative for you, and maybe gave you some ideas about what's possible in your local area. I will leave links to information about London National Park City, as well as Luke's company GrowN22 in the show description. Of course, I'll be making more episodes in the coming months about the National Park City, about what's going on here and some of the projects that I'm involved in. They will be peppered in throughout, the more normal episodes, if there is such a thing as a normal Green Urbanist episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to follow the podcast on social media, you can do that on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also email directly to me at greenurbanistpod@gmail.com if you have any feedback or ideas, or if you just want to say hello. Please go ahead and do that.